My rich, cheapskate husband offers me an old secondhand computer. I found 500 bitcoins on it. Hi, I'm Rina, and this is the story of the time I found 500 bitcoins in a secondhand computer. Before anything else, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to this channel to show me your support. This story began around a decade ago. At the time, I'd been asking my husband to spring for a computer for months, but all he ever did was say that he'd think about it. It wasn't as if we were poor and he couldn't afford one. Well, I was, technically, if you looked at my own personal bank account, that is. My husband, though, was rich. He inherited his family's company and has never been poor in his entire life. He was also stingy as heck. He never let me touch his money or buy anything for myself, even though 100% of my salary went straight to our household expenses. All Fred did was hoard whatever money he made, and I was left to pick up the slack and pay for what we needed in our lives. Most people would think that since we are married, we're supposed to share our money and other assets. But that wasn't always true for us. That didn't fly with Fred. And you know what? I didn't mind. He was my husband, so I just accepted that part of him. It was like his little quirk, I thought. But when the computer I was using for my online jobs and coding stints broke, I had to ask Fred if he could get me a replacement because I didn't have the extra cash. He said no. I was a little bit miffed, if I'm being honest. Picture me, a young professional woman working multiple jobs online to keep a household afloat while my husband was sitting on top of a fortune he refused to touch. Wouldn't you be annoyed too? It's for the future, he told me. Don't you want our son to have a comfortable life? Then where am I going to get the money for the present, Fred? How is Ethan's life going to be comfortable in the present if I don't work? It's not like you're buying any milk for him, I said, worried that my clients would disappear if I didn't get back to them. Isn't this whole marriage thing a partnership, Fred? I'm paying all of our bills, the mortgage, our food. All I ask is that you make things easier for me by doing this one small thing. I just need a computer, Fred. That's all I'm asking. Fred was quiet. For a second, I thought my husband was going to go off on me. But instead, he sighed and said, Fine, I'll get you one. I was so happy that I finally got through to him. I kissed Fred. I hugged him and thanked him. I was just happy that the whole thing didn't turn into a fight. I just hated arguing with the man I loved. It might seem like he's a tough guy to deal with, but my husband's no villain, not at all. And I don't want anyone to think that he is. I think he just has a different set of values and he clings to his family's traditions quite fiercely, no matter how silly they might seem. The next day, Fred came home from work carrying a huge box he was hardly able to carry alone. I got so excited. He got me the computer. I welcomed him home with a kiss on the cheek, and when he put the box down on the table, I dove in, not able to contain my excitement about what model he got me. When I finally saw what he'd brought, my spirits deflated like a popped tire. He got me a computer, all right, only it was as if he'd fished this one out of a dumpster. The case looked like it was never introduced to a duster in its entire lifetime. Ta-da, he said. My husband's face told me he was somehow proud of his find. I couldn't tell if it was a joke or if he actually thought he'd done something really nice for me. I was speechless for a moment, and then I said, I don't want to sound ungrateful or anything, but where did you even get this? Does it even work? Fred laughed. I know it's a clunker, but it was virtually free. Got it off a guy at the flea market next to our building. Paid the guy $10 for the lot. I think he was just happy to be rid of it. Said his friend got it from some dead guy's estate sale. Said it gave him the heebie-jeebies having dead people stuff. Okay, but does it even work? I said as I blew a thick layer of dust off the keyboard it came with. I started putting the computer together. Oh yeah, it definitely works. I know I can be a schmuck sometimes, but I'm not that much of a schmuck, my husband laughed. I tested it. I was actually on the way to the mall to get you a brand new one, but then I saw the flea market, and well, you know me, I can't resist a good bargain. I laughed and rolled my eyes at Fred. You could have gone to the mall and gotten me a new one, I told him. But now I can use the money I saved to take you on a date night, said Fred, tapping his temple with a finger. Oh, yeah, I laughed sarcastically. Very smart. My husband can be frustrating, but he does know how to make it up to me sometimes. If this thing burns the house down, I'm not the one who's going to deal with the insurance people, I told him as I began to boot up the sketchy computer. Fred crossed his fingers for luck. He wasn't wrong. It did work, and despite its appearance, the computer was in perfect order. It was probably even faster than what I used to have. The weird thing was that whoever sold the poor dead man's stuff didn't bother to wipe the thing. It felt weird, almost creepy to look at his old files and pictures that were still on there. What really intrigued me, though, were his notes. In it, he had a bunch of ideas for apps. And from what I could gather, the guy that the computer belonged to was a coder himself. And then I came across a curious passphrase saved in his notes. The file was named Bitcoin Wallet Passphrase. Clearly, his work was not in the field of cybersecurity. Seeing that file made my heart beat fast. See, back in those days, Bitcoin wasn't as big a thing as it is now. Most people wouldn't have even known what cryptocurrency was if you'd asked them. But I did. And to hardcore believers like me, Bitcoin was the future. I downloaded a wallet app and entered his passphrase. And there it was, 500 whole Bitcoins. Is this stealing? I said, mostly to myself. What? Said Fred. Oh, sorry, I said, realizing that I'd spoken my thoughts out loud. You won't believe this, but I just found 500 Bitcoins. This guy, he had 500 Bitcoins. And if I wanted, I can just have it. Bit what? Asked Fred. I explained the intricacies of cryptocurrency to Fred, but when his eyes began to glaze over, I had to say, basically, it's like digital money. So it doesn't exist, he concluded. No, I explained. It does. It's worth I don't know, $13 per Bitcoin now? Fred looked up at the ceiling as he did the math in his head, and then he nodded. Not bad for a $10 purchase, he said. So withdraw the thing. Maybe we can put it toward the house. I didn't. I knew in my gut that I had to hold on to the Bitcoins. I knew it was gonna be worth more. Way more. I insisted since it was my computer, I got to do what I wanted with it. I rarely put my foot down with Fred, but this time I did. See, Fred wasn't a big believer of what he called newfangled things. He disregarded the concept of quote-unquote invisible money. He called the whole thing silly. He said paper money could never be replaced or surpassed, and that crypto was just a passing fad and that it'd disappear in a year and no one would even remember that it was a thing. But the following year proved Fred wrong. Bitcoin exploded. The few thousands of dollars I had in cryptocurrency reached a value of $500,000 almost overnight. Well, as overnight as 365 nights can be. At first, I was apprehensive, of course. At first, I was scared, like most unstable markets, the crypto bubble would just suddenly burst. And so I saw that massive price spike as a great opportunity as any to actually cash in. I knew I had to act fast. On that fateful December day in 2013, I withdrew around half of it, just to make sure I at least got something out of it in case the whole thing came crashing down. You know, that money I used for me and the future that my husband was so intent on securing. The first thing I did was buy myself the best computer money could buy at the time, and then I paid off our mortgage. I paid off both of our cars and put away a small college fund for our little Ethan. And then I made sure to mine for more Bitcoins. Crypto had its ups and downs over the years, and Fred was still unconvinced, even though he had personally experienced the results. But then, in 2017, the price of Bitcoin soared to a whopping $20,000. I still had a little over 250 Bitcoins in my wallet when that happened, and I kid you not, I fell down on my knees and screamed, "I'm rich!" But then a financial crisis hit my country hard, and Fred's business was severely affected. At first, he used his savings to inject life back into his failing company, and I helped here and there. But eventually, the worsening state of the economy took its toll. The business didn't go under completely, but it became unsustainable, and so Fred had to dissolve the company. He was left with what little of his fortune he could salvage. Meanwhile, the value of my crypto fortune continues to rise. My husband did apologize one night when we were having dinner. He admitted that he could have been a bit more supportive as a husband. He said he was sorry for dismissing my ideas and for not helping out with the expenses as much as he should have. And then he realized that just because his parents had run their family and businesses the same way for decades, that it wasn't always the only way or right way to do things. I hugged him when he said all that, and I kissed him. Some of you might think, why didn't you just leave him? Why are you still with him when he was so awful to you? Well, the fact is, he wasn't awful. Sure, he was a cheapskate, and he mostly left me to take care of our expenses. But I didn't marry him so I could live a comfortable life. I married him because I love him. And there's more to my husband than his flaws. To be honest, I am thankful to him. If he hadn't been so stingy as to buy me a second-hand, beat-up computer from the flea market, I wouldn't have found those bitcoins.